Hi, I'm DMJ.
And I'm Ryan.
And welcome to
Tavern Talks.
So, Ryan, continuing our episodes on the tomes and supplements that a DM or a player might want, we have two tomes we're going to show the people today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about the player's handbook already. That's for the players to build their characters from. Today we want to talk a little bit more about the Dungeon Master or the Game Master and what they're going to need to be successful. The first book that I think we're going to want to showcase is the Monster's Manual.
You guys have cover right here. You've probably seen this, I hope, if you haven't.
This is a must-have for every DM.
I agree.
It's full of all the monsters and all the baddies you're going to ever want for your adventure. It gives you stats and ability blocks and special moves for all your baddies that you want.
Well, you know, and unless you're just very creative and have a lot of time in the world to just create your own monsters, this compendium for its price is going to give you more than your money's worth. They've kept in a lot of the good oldie monsters and put in some new ones. And again, as Ryan has said, they have every sort of preface into their stats, maybe what their layer content or cultures might be, if there is any, and how they might interact with other creatures of their type.
Absolutely. I think one of the nice parts about it is it's not all the baddies.
Right.
Okay. You've got some good creatures in here too. Your players may come across a dragon that helps them in their adventure. There's not every creature in here is evil. Some creatures in here are good and are helpful. And it talks about their societies and how they can interact and mingle with your players and what type of environments they live in. It's absolutely fantastic for having a source material that you could just instantly grab monsters from.
Right, and you know, here's a good idea too, guys. Combat is not always necessary. If you speak the language, or maybe the creature speaks common, or you, like I said, you speak the language, talk your way out of something if you don't think you can get through it, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to move on to
the Dungeon Master's Guide.
All right.
So, the Dungeon Master's Guide is perfect for flushing out your world.
Right.
You can see we've got some bookmarks in there already because we know that there are just incredibly useful tools in here, from treasure, magic items, helping reward your players. Right? That's kind of why they're playing too. It helps build encounters.
Right. Also, it has a great plethora of certain magical items, both for the character and for maybe NPCs or be held in crypts. Also, a lot of the magic items, too, can be detrimental to a character, a few cursed items in there. So it doesn't always reward those who grab snatchy, right?
That's true. You've got all kinds of wondrous items as well. I mean, your players are going to be after that +3 magic greatsword, but there's also wondrous items in there that can help them through their adventures that are very utilitarian, and bags of holding is a staple for every D&D game.
Exactly. Also, as Ryan had pointed out to me before we started the show, there's all sorts of ways of handling your adventuring group as to the style of play they might like. A lot of them might be combat heavy, a lot of them might be role-playing heavy, or a mixture of all. The DM's Guide can give you certain advice and hints on how to handle some of that if you're not quite sure how to handle your group in that sort of situation.
Yep, and the last thing I want to point out too, I think, is it's fair to know that the artwork in these books is just superb. I think they really knocked it out of the park.
It's beautiful.
It gives you a great idea of different worlds and different points of view that heroes can see in the world.
Right. If you're not purchasing this to use it alone, the pictures themselves are worth the look at. Just the maps that are given in the back of the Dungeon Master's Guide can be used on a fly if you're caught in a situation where your players want to. Oh, we're boarding a boat. There's a boat map in here.
Yep.
Oh, we're going into a cavern, not the castle. There's one of those in here you could use if you really had to.
Yep.
So we would both advise the DM picking up both these. Now, your own DM might advise the players, please don't get these because these can also
you don't want
ruin the game for you, right?
I mean, you're going to have your own, DM notes for your own adventure, but really these are for the DM's eyes only. It kind of can ruin some of the mystique once your players know that a Minotaur has X amount of hit points, right? Then they have to know that they have to just get to this magical number and not try and defeat a Minotaur.
Or out of the DM's guide, if they find a wondrous item and it's got the direct description, that somebody just doesn't pick it up automatically without having to take and get it identified.
Absolutely.
So as a DM, I get to look as a player. No.
Today's spell focus, we're going to be talking about Spike Growth, a second level transmutation spell, and how you can use that in your adventures.
Oh, I love this one. This one's a great one, Ryan. We talked a little bit about it before we came on camera, but the range on this one, as far as how much of an area you can affect, you can grow sharp, invisible spikes that the players first, if they want to perceive these, have to roll a perception roll and meet a certain DC standard to see them. So they're invisible in the first place. Number 2, you can drop it anywhere you want. From where you drop it, there's a 20-foot radius, which is 40 feet wide of these spikes. All right?
That's a big area.
Now, not only does it do that, I think it does some sort of damage. What does it do for that?
So what you're going to want to do is you're going to put this either on your enemies or have this be a trap for your enemies to walk into, because they can't see it unless they perceive it. And every time they take a movement step or a 5-foot step in or out of this area, they're going to take 2d4 points of damage. Now, 2d4, average of 4 points of damage, that adds up if you have to run to the other side of it.
Oh, yeah. And if they just want to stand still and not take damage, you can take ranged weapons and just plow right into them, right, from outside.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything that I would want to put between me and a charging Minotaur.
So once the spell has been cast, it only lasts what?
Well, it's concentration. So as long as you want to focus on it or are able to focus on concentrating on it for up to 10 minutes.
That's a pretty long time in playing time.
Yeah.
You know? Are there any sort of components needed for this spell? And maybe what would the range be?
So components are a weird thing because obviously you've got freedom of movement for a wizard or a druid who might be using this. So you have got the verbal and somatic components, but this one has a nice, fun material component. Some material components can be kind of silly, but this one's kind of neat, right? You either going to need some spikes or thorns or maybe some sharpened twigs. This helps you channel the spell. I know some player groups don't use the components or don't think about that too much.
Right.
But I also think that it can be a very fun thing for your casters as throughout their adventures to ask those questions to the DM. Hey, are there any thorns around? Well, why? Well, I need to gather them for my spell components.
Okay. Is this a reaction or an action, or what does this take to actually cause this spell?
So you have to be able to just to designate the spot, and it's only one action. So the same as any other attack or most spells.
That sounds pretty... Ow! Ow! Hey, what'd you do, Ryan? Jeez Louise!
Spike Growth, everyone.
And on today's episode, we'd like to give a special shout out and thanks to Serviceman Seth Pittman, who's commented on every one of our shows and about some maps and power gaming. And we hope to get to that soon, Seth.
Yes, thank you very much for your suggestions. We have put that on our list, and hopefully they make it on the show.
And Seth, thank you for your service to our country.
Glad you could join us today. If you have a comment or suggestion for the show, like or subscribe down below.
And good luck on your next adventures. And we'll see you on the next
Tavern Talks.